It's Wednesday, and you all know what that means. It's time for another episode of the Life in the Movies podcast. Hopefully, this one doesn't get lost in the Phantom Zone. My name is Ryan Cam. I'm one of your co-hosts. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I want to apologize for the weird turn of events of last week. Like I said, episode 39 got lost. Thankfully, my co-host Jacob Martin was so kind enough to come back on. It was a very short episode 39, but we got it out there anyway. But hopefully, and fingers crossed, this episode comes to you all on Wednesday, like I hope that it will, and I expect it will, and completely intact. So, so just here's to hoping for that. But anyway, Jacob, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Hopefully this one will work out this time. I'm excited to obviously talk about more Daredevil and discuss some Halloween movies. So it's going to be an awesome episode. Fingers crossed. Let's pray that it goes through this time.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Jacob said, we're going to be talking about movies that we watch either on Halloween Day or around Halloween Day, just to get us in the spirit for the holiday. But just a quick bit of house cleaning before we do go on. I want to announce that I'll be going on Jacob's channel this coming Thursday for episode 4 of Discussing DreamWorks. We're going to be talking about Chicken Run, and I cannot wait for that episode. Chicken Run is it's slowly becoming one of my all-time favorites. Like I said, I'm a bit of an Aardman super fan, so it's going to be a lot of fun to talk about.
Yep, definitely check that out. It's dropping Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. If you're a big DreamWorks fan and if you love Chicken Run, feel free to stop by and enjoy our talk on Chicken Run. We'll hope to see you there.
Yeah, and I also want to thank Jacob for having me on his channel this past Saturday for the watch along of Dr. No. It was a lot of fun watching the movie together, laughing at some of the absurd names for the Bond girls over the years. It was a great time. And Jacob, I hope I'm invited back on sometime because I'd love to do it again.
Yep, I'll definitely let you know on that.
All right, well, let's get into a couple things that we've been watching lately. So, Jacob, why don't you go first? What have you been watching lately?
Well, the video that actually is going to drop on my channel this week, I actually finished the season 2 of Downton Abbey. I watched the 90-minute Christmas special that you and so many others were raving about. One little nitpick I have with it, they call it the Downton Abbey Christmas special, yet it's only the Christmas aspect is only the first 10 minutes. And so I felt a little cheated by that because they call it the Christmas special. But I think I get that they did it because it aired around Christmas time and it was their way of boosting ratings, I guess. But diving into the story, it's still a great episode. Whether it's truly a Christmas episode or not, I guess that's up for debate. Because there was just so much great storyline that was going on left and right that was set up earlier in the season, and they paid off so nicely in the season, especially the whole drama with Mary and Richard, along with Matthew Crawley, like that whole kind of sort of love triangle, which is a trope that I usually can't stand. I was actually invested in that story. I could see the red flags and Richard as a character, and I wanted Mary and Matthew to actually be together at the end. I was very much invested in that, and it led to a great, satisfying payoff at the end, along with a very funny laugh from Maggie Smith near the end of it when the two men get into a brawl. Richard is fed up with the whole thing, and he's like, "You will never see me in this house again." She's like, "Oh, good." That was a great scene from her. I liked the Bates storyline was probably the most suspenseful because he's on trial now because he's framed for murder, and there's a chance he might go to death row. And I'm like, oh no, please don't let this happen. I love this character so much. I want justice to prevail in the end on that one. So that was a very good story. And I haven't really talked about Daisy much when we talked about Downton Abbey, but I really liked her character growth throughout season 2 because she had this guilt because she married somebody on his deathbed that she liked as a friend, but she didn't really love, and she felt kind of guilty over that. And so she finally has that long-awaited chat with William's dad, and by the end of it, she's more confident and assured than ever before. I actually love Daisy's arc in season 2, and I'm excited to see more of her character going forward. There's a lot that there's a lot to unpack in this episode because there's so many plot threads that were in this 90-minute episode, and I highly enjoyed it, even though calling it the Christmas episode was kind of a stretch. It's still a great episode that ended season 2, and I'm excited to see where the series goes from here.
Yeah, and to your point about the ratings, I just looked it up. According to the BBC, the episode was watched by an average of 6.6 million viewers live on the day, and future replays garnered an average of 3.9 million. So, I mean, the Christmas aspect certainly must have done something to boost the numbers.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But yeah, this episode is really, really good. Well, I've said in some other forums, but I'll say it here again. Bates is one of my absolute favorite characters in the show. Like, he goes through so much in the show, him and Anna respectively. I just gravitated towards them the most out of the entire show. They're definitely in my top 5. The whole thing with Mary and Matthew and that whole thing, it finally comes full circle in the Christmas special, and you really do love to see it. I love Matthew's integrity, especially with the whole Lavernia thing, but it was pretty much inevitable that him and Mary were going to be getting together. You might as well have just come out and said it, but they did it in the most romantic way possible.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the payoff of that for sure.
Yeah, and like I said, season 3 gets real dark. That's all I'm going to say, but I'm looking forward to.
What you saying? Season 3 is darker? What's more darker than World War I and the Spanish flu?
Oh, my friend, you're gonna find out. You're gonna find out real soon. But but anyway, Jacob, what do you have next?
I actually watched this in theaters this past weekend. No, I have not seen Halloween Ends just yet, but I did go to my dollar theater and I saw the murder mystery See How They Run, which premiered and I think came out a month ago in September. It was a murder mystery film that starred people like Saoirse Ronan, Sam Rockwell, Adrian Brody, David Oyelowo, I think is how you pronounce his last name, who played Martin Luther King in Selma, underrated actor. It's I was intrigued to see it because I'm a fan of murder mysteries and I like the cast, but I gotta be honest, I was disappointed in the movie. Even though I like the cast, I thought Saoirse Ronan especially was the standout. I really like her as an actress. I think my big issue with it is that the main story didn't really engage me enough, and I was so confused over the general tone of the movie. The whole murder revolves around the backstage of an Agatha Christie play, and the whole time I think the movie was making like in jokes and references to like Agatha Christie stuff and murder mysteries in general, and I think they were trying to go meta on the story. And I think, especially after watching She Hulk, where I was turned off by the meta in She Hulk, I think I'm starting to become a little bit more cynical about every other movie doing the meta comedy approach. And it turned me off fast. Like, I didn't really care for what they were trying to do with it. I was pretty much bored throughout the whole movie, and even the final twist underwhelmed me in general. It's a movie where, I think it's technically well made and it's got a good cast, but I just did not get into the mystery and the story, unfortunately. So, yeah, See How They Run is a miss for me, sadly.
Yeah, I feel very similar to you. I'm kind of done with the movie being like in on the joke. It's like, just make a good movie. You don't have to be smart, or let me rephrase that. You can be smart and clever without being like, hey, you know what we're doing here, eh? It's like, I'm I'm officially like just sick of it now, and I just hope that gets slowly just phased out. I surely hope so.
Yeah, we'll just have to see. Like between this, She-Hulk, and Matrix Resurrections, which did not do it well in my opinion. Until Deadpool 3 comes out, you can just put in the meta the rest.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, it like seeing a trailer, for example, like say Ticket to Paradise, that George Clooney, Julia Roberts movie. I don't know what my mind was doing going to that example, but seeing that trailer, it honestly looked kind of fun. It looked uncynical. It didn't look like, say, see, we're making fun of a certain subgenre of romantic comedy. Like, no, you're just pulling a straight-laced like romantic comedy starring George Clooney and Julia Roberts. It's like that's all it needs to be, and I'm pretty sure that it's going to be good for that very reason. I'm hoping to take my mom to see it. She's kind of a Julia Roberts super fan, but I'll let you know what I think of it at that time. But anyway, Jacob, what else you got?
I think that's actually it. I didn't watch near as much. Obviously, I did rewatch Doctor No for the watch party,
Mhm.
and I do enjoy that one, of course. You can go back and watch the replay if you want to watch our full reaction to that. So, what have you been watching, Ryan?
Oh well, one new release and a bunch of stuff for Scary Mania. The Scary Mania stuff I'll just tie into one. It's really is a tale of just two halves, or really a tale of two halves, like I said. First half was Aliens, Evil Dead 2, and Scream 2. All three movies I actually really loved for one reason or another. Aliens, we all know what that movie is. It is a stone cold classic. Evil Dead 2, it was my first time watching it. Stone cold classic. That review will be going up. I was joined by Brevin from Brevin Flicks and Games for both of those reviews, and I'm so grateful that he was there for those. I'm going to be joining on his channel for his horror series coming up in the near future involving a certain doll. That's all I'm going to say, and I'm not talking about Annabelle either. Scream 2 was really, really good. I like what Wes Craven did, how he leaned more into the stuff that he was going to do in Scream 1. I like that. I watched An American Werewolf in Paris, which was awful. I'm going to have more in my Scary Mania review for that. But An American Werewolf in Paris is low-key probably the best werewolf movie we're probably ever going to get. It's directed by John Landis. It's fantastic. The practical effects by the late Stan Winston were just phenomenal. Or, oh wait, actually it was Rick Baker. Rick Baker did the effects, my bad. But Rick Baker did a phenomenal job on those. But in American Werewolf in Paris, CGI is just bad. Every scene has just this incomprehensible late 90s like death metal music in every scene. And I like the music from the late 90s. I'm not going to lie. I have a bit of nostalgia for it. But every song was like, just like the bang your head type stuff. And I could have sworn I thought they were going to do like a Drowning Pool or a Limp Bizkit song in there, but they didn't. I guess they couldn't afford it. But do you actually know who has a small part in this movie, Jacob?
Mm. I remembered you telling me when we did the Doctor No watch party, but I think I forgot now.
Is Julie Delpy from the Before movies.
Ooh,
And
whoa.
keep in mind, An American Werewolf in Paris came out in 1997, 2 years after Before Sunrise. And the entire time I saw her on screen, her eyes were just thinking to herself, please, Richard, call me. Please, Richard, call me. Please, Richard, call me. She looked like she would rather be anywhere else but there. But yeah, the movie is crap. It really is. And then to top it all off, earlier today, I watched Book of Shadows Blair Witch 2. Holy
Oh,
crap. You
I've
know,
heard so many things on that one.
this isn't even kind of the so bad it's good. This is just the boring kind of bad. It's a movie that really just doesn't know what it wants to be. Is it trying to be, because it acknowledges the Blair Witch Project, the movie that we all know from 1999 that became one of the biggest movies of a very big year for movies, that being 1999. It acknowledges the fact that it is a movie, but it does several scenes where it's like they're doing the handheld cam, they're acknowledging the fandom. It's a bunch of different ideas that could have been interesting, but are just never followed through upon. And it just feels so, it's just a mess. It's a 90-minute mess, but I'll have more details on that when I get there. And then, like I said, watch Dr. No with you, Jacob, and then I did indeed watch Halloween Ends, and this movie has been very polarizing. There are some people who have loved it, and there are some people that have hated it. I lean more in the bad side of things. However, I do understand why people do indeed like this, but there are some decisions made, and I will not spoil it in case anyone has not seen it. Jacob, I know you haven't seen it, so I won't spoil it for you. But there are some decisions in this movie that just perplexed me. This felt like, honestly, two different movies. Corey Cunningham, the character that's the main new addition to this movie. He is simultaneously the most interesting and low-key one of the worst parts of the movie. That's all I will say. But for a movie that has the subtitle Ends, it introduces a lot of stuff that it says, hey, there could be a sequel if you really want it, which I didn't buy that Ends crap for a single minute. I don't want to be cynical about it, but I mean, we've gotten this whole Halloween Ends thing for about a minute now, and it's just a complete load of crap every time. But there are some genuinely good moments in the movie, but the rest of the time, it's just not good. And I'll have more details in my review coming up sometime later this week. But yeah, it's not great.
Yeah, some of the reactions I've seen for Ends online, it kind of reminds me a bit how the fans were split on something like The Last Jedi. It's like you either really, really enjoy it or you think it's hot garbage and it destroyed the whole franchise. Like there's no in between for a lot of people.
I will give Halloween Ends credit. It didn't have Buster Rhymes in it, which is a very low bar to get over, but they at least did that. So, anyway, yeah, so like I said, I'll have a full review of that coming up later this week. But what have you all been watching lately? Leave your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say. All right, Jacob, let's dive into some Daredevil talk. Let's talk about Daredevil Season 2, Episode 2, called Dog to a Gunfight. And I will read, or Dogs to a Gunfight, excuse me, and I will read the plot. As Murdoch recovers from an attack, Foggy and Karen fight to protect their new client from both the law and the kitchen's newest vigilante. So this episode is a big deal because this is the first time that we see John Bernthal's Punisher on the screen. We've obviously felt his presence, but this is the first time we actually see him. And I got a little giddy when I first saw that outline. I'm like, he's coming, he's coming, he's coming. It's kind of like Renfield, like hailing Dracula, that little dude calling Thanos. So like, all hail the powerful Thanos. Like I was that dude when he first walked on screen. I'm not ashamed to admit it. But Jacob, what did you think of the episode?
I thought it was really good, and I think what I enjoyed the most about it is the whole intrigue of the Punisher. Like they set him up really well in this episode. He's not in it much, but the couple times we have seen him, he has a presence that you do not want to mess with him. He's pretty much the extreme version of what Daredevil already is. Like Daredevil's one who gets in brawls and gets in fights and he takes on bad guys, but he just uses his fists. Punisher goes all out. Like he has a load of guns and he'll go crazy amounts of violence to get his way. There's this one action scene. A lot of it is off camera and it's in the perspective of this one guy that's muffled in headphones and he's oblivious to what's going on. But you see the other dude slowly getting picked off left and right, and I'm like, oh. That Punisher is no joke.
Yeah, they constantly use the phrase, or not the phrase, but the word army in these past couple of
Yeah,
episodes. That's about as accurate a description as
he's
you could hope
like a
for.
one-man army.
Yeah, and I love that scene because this dude is like just washing off this truck and he's doing his job, and then this body comes next to him and he's like, "Son of- I just cleaned this area," and he's like, "Oh no." It's such a great little moment. It's noticeable, but it is there.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's interesting too is that Matt Murdock is, he's still determined to do his job, but yeah, that shot he had took a toll on him. You can greatly tell that. Even his abilities were off. Like he was carrying that glass of water and he dropped it, for instance. Yeah, there's something off about his supersonic abilities after that traumatic gunshot.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't matter if you're the man without fear. If you get shot on or near your head, I mean, that's going to take you out for a while. And that's why I love this Daredevil so much because yes, he does have abilities, but it's a great mix of vulnerability and general badassery. There is no heavy dose of one and heavy dose of the other. It's a perfect balance. Matt Murdock is a human being, but he's an enhanced human being, but he's still a human being. And this show just got the balance perfectly.
Yeah, I agree, and it was actually fun. It's actually cool, while Matt Murdock is, he's resting and recovering a little bit. He gets into action in the end, but it was fun seeing, Foggy, get more of a chance to shine in this episode, and him really coming on his own, and yeah, that he can actually be an awesome lawyer even without the aid of Matt Murdock. He was like going toe to toe with that Fed lady. He was pretty awesome at it. Like he didn't need Matt. He was pretty much like a boss in that moment. I'm like, yes, go for it, Foggy.
Yeah, that DA was just so condescending. Like when she drops the line is like if like even if even if your practice doesn't collapse under the weight of all the chicken baskets and the fruit baskets, you're going to need a favor from the attorney's office. And depending on how this conversation goes, it will be forthcoming or it will be permanently withheld. I'm like,
Yeah,
it would have been
that
far
lady
easier
played
just to call these people low rent. At least I would have appreciated your honesty, but she just comes off as like oh, look at you and your little law practice now, hit the bricks. Like she is just and she completely botches that whole Punisher thing because I'm just in there like, it's the Punisher, lady. Like, what are you like thinking that he's gonna fall for something like that? And he doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, that lady pretty much annoyed me. I was just ready for like Foggy to be like, we got it. We can take care of it. We don't need you.
Yeah, and he pretty much does when he pulls out the, oh, I have the number for the U.S. Attorney's Office. Like he pulls out that card. I'm like, Foggy, look at you go. You go, you go there, kid from the Mighty Ducks. Fulton, that's his.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, did you like what did you think of Punisher's like debut? Like when you see him in that pawn shop and he pays for the thing, but then the dude's like, hey, I got more stuff. I got these triple X DVDs, and I'm like, oh, look at this one. It's even got young kids in it. And I'm like, you're really
Uh,
selling that. And then he just like stops, puts the bag down, flips the closed sign. He's like, all right, down on my watch. And you're like, bro, that's just crazy.
yeah, like I think it was trying to establish that this is not a good dude. Even though I think I don't know the Punisher well, but I'm pretty sure the Punisher is a character that he thinks he's right in his cause. I think he's one of those extreme cases, but he's still doing a lot of bad decisions along the way, and I think this is one of them. Like he just went off on a random pawn shop dude.
I think the phrase is he's doing the wrong thing for the right reason.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
exactly.
where we left off, it's literally after the first Daredevil and Punisher fight, and they're just looking over broken glass, and that's when the credits hit. I'm like, dang it, I want to watch the next. I forget how addicting this show really is. But after Jessica Jones, and not to dig on Jessica Jones, it was a really good show, but Daredevil's just like S tier stuff. So I'm so
Yeah,
excited that we're covering that, and we decided that. And I'm so excited for episode 3, Jacob.
yeah, same here. I doing this in the week by week format, like what the Marvel Disney Plus shows, is very frustrating because, especially in Daredevil, all the cliffhangers frustrate me. I just want to watch the next episode immediately.
Yeah, that speaks to how much quality that show really had. Is it was on Netflix and it was all available in the one day, so people were just like, "Well, on to episode 3," but we're not doing that.
Yeah.
But anyway, what did you all think of Daredevil season 2, episode 2? Leave your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say. All right, Jacob, let's get into the main event for the evening, and this is going to be a bit of a laid back kind of discussion, but I pitched the idea to talk about those movies that we watch either on Halloween or on Halloween night or around that time, just to get us in the mood. And I'll just kick things off. Every year I do a yearly rewatch of The Shining, the Stanley Kubrick Shining. And even though I know exactly what's going to happen, I still think it's still my favorite horror movie of all time. It provides legit creepy moments combined with that air of, is this really happening? Is this in Jack's head? It and I'm aware that Stephen King really didn't like this version. Like he thought that Stanley Kubrick did Jack Torrance kind of dirty, which I can kind of understand why, but at the same time, it's it's Stanley Kubrick just past his prime, but still being Kubrick. And I love this movie and I watch it every Halloween day. Like it's either day or night, but I always make an appointment to watch it on Halloween day, October 31st. And that's one of my genuine ones that it's appointment viewing for me.
Yeah, that is a good choice.
Is there anything that you watch particularly on Halloween, the day itself?
Well, I'm not as big on Halloween compared to other YouTubers. I don't really have like any like those movies or shows that I have set in stone. But around Halloween, I think one that I've been watching the last few years, ever since I've watched it for the first time, is John Carpenter's Halloween, the original from 1978. Even with the many sequels and remakes and whatever movies they'll probably end up making after the supposed Halloween ends, John Carpenter's original Halloween is still a classic at the end of the day. Like you can just watch the original Halloween and see the incredible work that Carpenter put on display, and with such a small budget, and creating one of the best iconic horror movies there is with Michael Myers, him going around killing a bunch of teenage girls, and Jamie Lee Curtis in her memorable debut performance as Laurie Strode, who is one of the definitive scream queens. I can't get enough of Halloween. It's a classic for a reason, and it's one of my go tos around this time of year.
Have you seen Halloween 2 by chance?
I have seen Halloween too. I don't like it near as much as the original Halloween. I'm not a big fan of the whole twist where they make it to where Michael and Laurie are siblings. That's a pretty stupid twist, in my opinion. But there's still some good kills in that movie. And I like some of the ideas, like the hospital setting for one, but it's nowhere as iconic as the first movie to me.
That is fair enough. I do remember watching it for Scary Mania this year, and of all the sequels that I have seen, it is the best one. However, it is a definite step down. It definitely hurts that John Carpenter didn't come back to the Halloween movies after the first one in the director's chair. He got a story credit for Halloween 2, but that's pretty much it. It made him a lot of money, so that's good, I guess. But at the same time, the Halloween movies never really felt the same after he left, if that's fair to say.
Yeah, I agree because I actually do really like Halloween 2018. There was a lot of good ideas in that movie, and a part of me wished that was the final chapter of Halloween because I liked the final scene of that movie. But even that director could not match what John Carpenter brought back in 1978. Like John Carpenter, he did the lightning in a bottle with Halloween, and there's only one true Halloween movie at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Always imitated, never duplicated, or never precisely duplicated anyway. Another one of my particular favorites is one that I watch with my dad every year. It's The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. It's one of those where I know exactly what's going to happen. I've seen it 100 times, and I'll probably watch it 100 more. It's one of those specials that just doesn't. It's completely ageless. Everyone can get involved with it, and I kind of hate Apple a little bit because it's not showing on network television like CBS and all that is instead on Apple TV Plus, which I mean, it kind of sucks because it's as long as I've been alive, the Peanut specials have been on like CBS or at NBC or whatever it is. I don't know what it's like where you live in Virginia there, Jacob, but here in Florida, it's like every year on the holidays they always showed the Peanut specials, and it's not going to happen this year, and I feel really sad about that. But that doesn't mean I can not watch the special, which I will. I actually own the Blu-ray of it, and so I will be watching it that way. But I don't know, it's just not going to be the same.
Yeah, it's the same here in Virginia. Like what they used to do, like the Halloween special around Halloween, and the Thanksgiving one around Thanksgiving, and the Christmas one around Christmas. And I actually forgot that Apple now owns the Peanuts rights now, and I forgot that they don't air the Peanuts specials on network TV anymore, which is kind of sad. But I was actually about to say The Great Pumpkin is another one that I regularly watch around Halloween. That would have been one of my other choices. So thank you for, I think, getting it a little ahead of the curve. I think it's a great Peanut special. It's probably one of the definitive Peanut specials along with the Christmas one. Even though I've seen this probably about 100 times as well, but I still can't get enough of how charming and funny it actually is. Like I like Sally's little rant about missing the trick or treating because she waited in the pumpkin patch always gets a good laugh out of me. Like, oh, Sue, you owe me restitution. And Charlie Brown always getting his rocks. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. It's a classic for a reason.
I love that part where everyone's like, "Oh, I got a stick of gum. I got a quarter. I got a rock." Like, poor Charlie Brown always getting the rocks. It is,
There's a town conspiracy against him.
yeah, there definitely is. It started with Lucy and it spread. They might as well be in Haddonfield and Halloween Ends, but that's not a spoiler. But I love the part at the end of the special where after everyone's long gone to bed, Lucy gets up. I want to say it must be like 1 or 2 a.m. and she notices that Linus hasn't come home yet. And so she goes, finds him like curled up in his blanket in the pumpkin patch and like brings him home. And that was definitely like one of those moments where it's like, where are the Peanuts' parents? Like, do they even have parents? Like, how do they own this? I know I'm digging into things that probably shouldn't be dug into, but I'm just sitting there like, where are their parents? Like they would have been on the hunt, like, Linus, get your butt back in the house. It's gonna get cold in soon. And but it's a nice moment, but it's one of those where I'm just sitting there like, where are the parents in all of this?
That's a good point.
But yeah, I still I
Their
still
parents don't love them. That's what it is. They're always out.
that's a good point. Yeah. Well, as far as recent stuff goes, and the next movie I'm gonna bring up is recent. It's 2007, but it's still a movie that I think will rapidly become a Christmas classic if it hasn't become so already. Trick or Treat. Jacob, have you seen this one?
I saw it once a couple years ago.
Watch it again because it is one of those that is better than you remember. It's directed by Michael Dougherty, who's pretty much taking over the MonsterVerse for Warner Brothers. He's directed Godzilla versus Kong. He directed, I believe he didn't direct Kong Skull Island. That was
I think he did King of the Monsters, I think.
That's the one, yeah. But Michael Dougherty, I'm a low-key fan of his, not a super fan, but a fan. But Godzilla versus Kong was so much fun, and he did a really good job helming that. But this was the one that got his foot in the door. And Trick or Treat is just, it's one of those that just screams Halloween. It can't take place in any other time of the year. And Sam, that little pumpkin head looking dude, is just so creepy. And it honestly kind of reminds me of The Twilight Zone in that it's an anthology and it tells separate stories all in one night. I recommend that as not necessarily a hidden gem, because everyone I talk about it to absolutely loves it, but I think it's still hidden just in the general public. Brian Cox is in it, Anna Paquin is in it, Leslie Bibb is in it. Let's see, it's an ensemble cast, and I believe it's 3 separate stories told on the same Halloween night. And it's one of those that it screams the holiday, and it's really underrated. And we're finally getting a sequel. Thank God.
Yeah, like I said, I've seen this film once and I really enjoyed it. A lot of which is because one, it's one of the best shot horror movies that represent the Halloween holiday well. And it actually did the anthology story very well. Yeah, they're separate stories, but each of them subtly connect with one another, and it actually made for a brilliant payoff at the end. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed the movie because of that.
Yeah, and think about it like this. With Brian Cox and Anna Paquin, we basically got the William Stryker and Rogue of the Fox X-Men movies in the same movie together.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So yeah, I would definitely consider it a bit of a hidden gem. But another one that I like to watch around the same time, and it kind of leans towards an animated phase, but I do love this, and it fits the season as well. Monster House. Jacob, have you seen this one?
It's been forever since I have seen Monster House.
It used to air all the time on Cartoon Network around the season, and it's one of those movies that you just, again, it just screams Halloween. It literally takes place on the days before Halloween, and it ends on Halloween night, and is directed by Gil Kennan, who's a major veteran. Voice cast includes Mitchell Musso, who I know from the Disney Channel. He's been in a ton of shows for that. Steve Buscemi is the cranky old man, which, I mean, if you're going to get a cranky old man, get Steve Buscemi. That is for sure. He's Mr. Nevercracker, which is a great old man name. Maggie Gyllenhaal is in here as the voice of one of the kids. The two police officers in the movie are voiced by Kevin James and Nick Cannon, which are 2 names that I didn't think would ever go together in a movie, but there you go. And I just love the imagination in this movie, just because it's a bit of a tragedy why this monster house is a monster house, and I won't spoil it in case anyone has seen it, but I just love the imagination that went into it, and just the climax is just really just brilliant. But yeah, Monster House is definitely one that I highly recommend. I don't know if it's necessarily a hidden gem, but it's a movie that I love to pieces, and it's a piece of my childhood.
Yeah, like I think this might have been like one of the first, I guess, scary movies I guess I watched as a kid, for lack of a better words. And I still got into it just fine. I watched it a couple times as a kid, but I haven't seen it in so long. I think I'm due a long overdue a rewatch of Monster House.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And it's a pretty breezy watch too. It's just 91 minutes, and it really is efficient. It gets in, tells a story, and it gets out. It doesn't linger. It just is very effective in that sense. But another one that has become a bit of a recent watch for me is Paranorman, the Leica movie, which, oh boy, talk about, Leica is secretly a pretty creepy little studio, because they got Coraline. I've never looked at buttons the same way ever again. And Paranorman is pretty much a kid's horror movie, for lack of a better word. I mean, the kid talks to ghosts. I mean, that's horror right there if you really think about it.
Yeah, that is. I haven't seen Paranorman that many times. I think I've seen it about twice in my life, but Paranorman's one where, like, I think when I watched it the second time, I had already liked it, but when I rewatched it, I saw how brilliant of a movie it actually is. Like, Leica went into some dark places in that movie, and I really respect the bold choices they made. And it made for a very entertaining, but also very unnerving movie. From animation seems to be targeted as geared for kids, but they actually went to some dark places to where it almost feels like you're watching, a normal horror movie geared for adults at times. Like, it's crazy the layers they went through in that story. But yeah, kudos to Leica for actually pulling it off.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess let's go down a bit of a Leica rabbit hole. What is your favorite Leica movie? I think mine would have to be Kubo and the Two Strings. I
Yeah,
love that
same here.
movie to death. It is
Yeah.
it's such an epic movie. I give this studio the credit that they deserve for absolutely casting Matthew McConaughey as a warrior beetle. Like, that's the perfect voice for that character right there.
Yes, that is an amazing movie. I got a couple others that I'm going to share that I do watch around the Halloween time. Speaking of animation, one that my sister and I love watching this time of year, and we love watching it a lot, is The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, which is a package film in the 1940s. It has two stories, The Wind in the Willows and The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. The Wind in the Willows is a fun little short on its own, but around the Halloween time, we watched the film mainly for The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, which is Disney's adaptation of the story of Ichabod Crane, the school teacher of the town of Sleepy Hollow, and his encounter with the Headless Horseman. If you have not seen the Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, it's actually the best package film of that era. The package films were a series of animated movies, different short films that Disney was making, packaged together into feature films because Disney was low on money at the time due to World War II, and a lot of animators got drafted. And Ichabod and Mr. Toad was the last of the package films that was released in 1949. But these two shorts are fantastic, and The Legend of Sleepy Hollow is the sole reason why you should watch the film. It's narrated by Bing Crosby, who was a brilliant narrator to tell the story. He brought his songs into the shorts, and the songs are really great, especially the Headless Horseman. And the final act with the Headless Horseman is a brilliant mix between being utterly terrifying with its visuals and imagery, yet also being ridiculously funny at the same time. Like, I can't explain the mix that well. You have to watch it for yourself to see what I'm talking about. But it's always a sequence that's entertained me even as a kid, even though a lot of people say it's so traumatizing. Yet I always enjoyed it at the same time. And it has a dark payoff to it at the end, which is bold for a Disney film. But it's a great short if you haven't seen it. You can watch Ichabod and Mr. Toad on Disney Plus. It's a true hidden gem. Watch it especially for the Sleepy Hollow segment.
I actually have never seen this one. I want to someday, but I have seen the Sleepy Hollow movie that Tim Burton directed that starred Johnny Depp, Christina Ricci, let's see, Michael Gambon, who is a longtime character actor. He was Alfred in the Batman movies from Batman 89 to Batman and Robin. He's been in a ton of
Michael
other
Goff.
he's been in a ton of other stuff, but
Oh, right. It's Michael Goff.
oh, you're right.
Michael Gambon is Dumbledore.
Oh yeah, that's right. Well, Michael Gambon is in Sleepy Hollow also, so I was
Yeah.
getting my Michaels confused. Christopher Lee is in the movie for a brief spell, and then there's Christopher Walken, who is the Headless Horseman. That's a great choice. Get credit to Burton for doing that. But yeah, I will
Yeah,
definitely go.
I've seen Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow, and it's an enjoyable version, but it's nothing compared to the Disney cartoon. The Disney one's the definitive one.
I'll definitely go out of my way to see it sometime. But and then going back to animation, just really quick, unless you had another one you wanted to share.
I have another one. It's not an animated film, but another one I love watching around Halloween is Ghostbusters. 'Cause I love my scary movies, but I actually love getting a good laugh during this time of year, and Ghostbusters is like the perfect mix of that. There are a couple of like tension-filled moments in that movie, but that whole movie is just a breezy time. I mean, you got your lightning in a bottle casting with Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson, the late Harold Ramis, who were all awesome as the four Ghostbusters. Everyone worked great in that movie, along with the supporting cast, whether Annie Potts, Sigourney Weaver, Rick Moranis, directed by the late Ivan Reitman, which even after going through his filmography, the original Ghostbusters is still his best movie by far. Like he struck lightning in a bottle with that movie. It's a great comedy, great visual effects for the time. The Ray Parker Jr. song is iconic. What more do you want? It's an awesome '80s gem that does a good job of doing a spooky story, but with a great comedy in the front and center of it.
Yeah, I mean, Ghostbusters is a classic of the 80s, and really, they never captured that magic again. Even the original cast returned for Ghostbusters 2. And while I don't think that movie is as bad as some people say, it's literally like Ghostbusters 2 is here, and Ghostbusters 1 is like way up there. It's not even close.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that one for sure. I think my favorite follow-up Ghostbusters film was actually Ghostbusters Afterlife. I felt like Jason Reitman, Ivan Reitman's son, did a good job of carrying on the legacy that his father started, doing a new generational tale of Ghostbusters while paying respect to the original cast, especially the late Harold Ramis. I think that one was actually, though it does copy and paste a little bit of the elements of the original, a little too much for my liking. It's still a really good movie, and I'm excited to see more Ghostbusters films going forward. They did announce a sequel, I think, that's coming out next year.
Should I spoil who the villain is in the movie? I mean, it's going to be almost a year since the movie's been out, but should I say who it is?
Oh, for Afterlife?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're good.
Oh, yeah, I didn't like the fact that Gozer was the villain. I thought that was a very blatant retread. It's like when the real Ghostbusters, that animated show, did so much with their villains, and the best that the movies can come up with. Like in Ghostbusters 2, it was pink slime. In the 2016 Ghostbusters movie, it was their own logo. And then in Afterlife, it was just the villain from the first movie. I mean, wow, it's like another example of the stuff for kids was far more creative and entertaining than the stuff meant for adults. If that says anything at all.
Yeah, like that was like the only real issue I had was some of the repeated elements of the first. It was a little too deja vu for my liking, but the heart of that movie was what made it a good movie to me by the end of the day.
Yeah, shout out to the young cast of that movie. I'm low key kind of afraid that Finn Wolfhard is going to be cast in like ghost or sci-fi stuff for the rest of his career because Stranger Things is such a big hit, and it's like he's been in nothing but horror or sci-fi or fantasy stuff. But I hope he doesn't get typecast too much.
Yeah, but he's still pretty good in the role. I want to see more of, especially McKenna Grace as Phoebe. I thought she was easily the best aspect of Afterlife. I really liked her character. She definitely looked like the descendant of Harold Ramis, and I thought she fit like the Egon role very well in that movie. And I'm excited to see her grow into, I guess, I don't know how many more Ghostbusters movies they're going to make, but the older she gets, I can't wait to see what she's going to do with that character, depending on how many they make.
Yeah, and I've been a big fan of McKenna Grace ever since I saw her in this movie called Gifted. Jacob, I don't know if you've ever seen this.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's really good.
It's such a good little movie directed by Mark Webb, the guy who did the Amazing Spider-Man movies, but don't let that stop you from watching Gifted. It is really good. Chris Evans is gives my favorite performance of his, like, in the movie, and especially the ending. Oh boy, get a box of Kleenex for that one, because it's a good ending. It's a really good ending, but it's gonna make you cry. That is for certain. But pivoting back to Halloween stuff, another one of my personal favorites to watch is The Nightmare Before Christmas, and I actually watch it on both Halloween and Christmas time. It takes place in both, so the law suggests that you watch it on both.
Yeah, there's always that debate on whether it's truly a Halloween movie or a Christmas movie. I do believe it leans more so as a Christmas movie, as Christmas is the main plot device of the film, but I definitely get it if you believe it's either. And at the same time, I definitely don't mind it being celebrated either on Halloween or Christmas, as it's a great movie all the same.
Yeah, and it's one of those movies that, being Nightmare Before Christmas, that has truly gotten more and more legs, especially after the movie was released. Because if I remember, I remember the Nostalgia Critic released a video essay talking about the movie, and he was talking about initially how it didn't really do super well at the box office. No one really knew what to make of it. But as time has gone on, it's not too uncommon to go into like a Walgreens or a Walmart, and when the Halloween stuff is up, there's like an entire section dedicated to Nightmare Before Christmas. So it really has it really has become a life of its own, like coming up on 30 years after its first debut. It's going to be celebrating its 30th anniversary. It was released in 1993, and next year, 2023.
Yeah, it's one that I didn't actually watch as a kid. Like, I knew about the movie, but I never saw it as a kid. And it was like my teenage years when I actually first watched it for the first time. And even then, I'm like, yeah, Nightmare Before Christmas is something truly special, especially how it was like probably the first like really big stop motion animated film. Most of the stop motion, especially what Tim Burton was going for, he and Henry Selick, a lot of the stuff they were doing was paying homage to a lot of those Rankin Bass Christmas specials like Rudolph and Frosty and Santa Claus is Coming to Town, among others. The fact that they took that concept and made it into a feature length film, and the fact that stop motion animation is now, it's I guess a much more, I don't know if I want to say committed art form, because it's still underrated in a lot of aspects, I would say. But the fact that, studios like Leica and Aardman have made feature length films because of Nightmare Before Christmas, you got to give them credit where credit is due.
Yeah, absolutely. And give credit to Henry Selick, who actually directed the movie. It was given the Tim Burton name, I imagine, to get more butts and seats, but it's really a Henry Selick movie. He directed it. We might as well give Henry Selick his flowers while I hope he is still alive. I've
Yes,
got
he is still alive.
okay.
He directed Nightmare Before Christmas, and he's also directed James and the Giant Peach. He directed Coraline, and he has a new movie he's directing that's coming out on Netflix
Oh,
called
yeah.
Wendell and Wild, which is produced by Jordan Peele.
Yeah, I was having a brain fart because I've gotten dead people like wrong who are still alive in videos before, so I always give the caveat of if he or she is still alive, and hopefully, and yes, and Henry Selick is still alive. I was having a moment, but yeah,
Yeah,
Nightmare
very
Before Christmas.
underrated director, because Nightmare Before Christmas is often associated as a Tim Burton film. I've even seen it on Tim Burton rankings, and I'm like, yeah, I get it. He was involved in it. He produced it. He came up with the idea, but he did not direct it. Give Henry Selick his due, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, give Henry Selick his flowers while he is still alive. But I was looking up some like lists of what people watch on Halloween on Letterboxd, and there was one that I thought was a bit of a curious choice, Poltergeist, that was directed by Toby Hooper. Toby Hooper. I mean, it's pretty much a Steven Spielberg movie in its DNA, but he was working on E.T. at the same time, and couldn't work with the two different studios. So he was on as a producer, but everyone from the set has said he directed a lot more than they let on. But I mean, credit to Toby Hooper. I imagine he put some input into it, but Poltergeist is low-key kind of terrifying. I don't know, if Jacob, if you've seen it, but there's a couple of dream sequences where I'm just like, what am I? Like, it's like deer in headlights. There's one where this agent like just starts pulling at his own face, and his face goes into this sink, and just sitting there like, and it's like, it still gets me, even though the movie was made in 1982. That's how good the movie is.
Yeah, it's been quite a few years since I've seen Poltergeist, but it is a really good movie, and a lot of the best aspects are when the movie embraces like the practical effects and the horror elements of the story, especially in the third act.
Yeah, shout out to Craig T. Nelson. I guess he was just always born to play fathers.
Yeah, yeah. Like I always see him on screen. Every time I hear his voice, I'm like, hey, it's Mr. Incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. And like seeing him in Poltergeist is so random because you hear his voice and you're like, wait, is Mr. Incredible here? Oh no, wait, that's actually Craig T. Nelson. Wow. Fancy seeing you here. But certainly is a lot of fun talking about like movies that we love to watch around Halloween time. We should definitely revisit this topic around next year's Halloween. But what do you all watch around Halloween? Do you all have a tradition? I'm sure friend of the show, Aaron White, has a couple of movies that he likes to watch around this time. Leave those in the comments. We would love to read what you all have to say. And well, that's another episode in the books. Thank you all so much for watching, Jacob. It is a privilege as always. Tell everyone where they can find you.
They can find me on Letterboxd, Twitter, Facebook, and you can also subscribe to my two YouTube channels. Currently on my second channel, Storytime with Jacob, I'm reading Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. That channel is where I do book reviews and read-alongs. I'm actually at some really good places in that book. It's been a blast rereading it. And then over on my main channel is where I do all the movie reviews, TV reviews, all that fun stuff. As we've talked about already, this past weekend, me and Ryan did our weekend watch party collab on Dr. No. That was a lot of fun. You can check out the replay if you want. I also recently did a live collab with my friend Rashad at Rashad G Reviews, where we ranked our top 10 90s movies. That was a fun discussion. And then my Downton Abbey video will be dropping this week, where I review the final episode of season 2, the Christmas special, and other videos coming this week. I'll be, like I said, this Thursday, Ryan and I will be discussing Chicken Run for our Discussing DreamWorks podcast. I'll be dropping my video of She-Hulk this week and how terrible that show actually is. And another video I'll be reviewing 2 more Ivan Reitman films in that director project. I'm covering the films Evolution from 2001 and a movie he did called My Super Ex-Girlfriend, starring the great Uma Thurman. So there's some exciting stuff coming to the channel this week. Definitely be on the lookout for some exciting stuff.
Yeah, definitely subscribe to Jacob on both of his channels. As for this channel, Scary Mania will be continuing for the rest of the month. This will be dropping on a Wednesday. That means my Aliens video with Brevin is dropped on this coming Tuesday. My Evil Dead 2 video with Brevin will have dropped. Today also will be, let me check my board, will be Scream 2, followed by An American Werewolf in Paris, and The Rage, Carrie 2. So that's all coming up. And then I also do plan on seeing Black Adam, and we'll hopefully have a review up for that. But thank you all so much as always for watching. That is Jacob Martin. My name is Ryan Cam. We will see you in the next one. Y'all take care now.